Some of y'all are activated. I'm just gonna put it out there. Some of you can be positively activated or negatively activated. And I guess we all have a choice, right, of perspective. How are you, miss? Oh, I'm doing great, man. But also at the same time, I have to respect the energy for what it is, because like there's energetically there's an announcement today. It's almost like it's a no bullshit, brass tacks, no screwing around. It's like, hey, why don't you pay attention? Check this out. Look at what easily offends you. You know what I'm saying? Look at what easily touches you. Is it a negative or a positive aspect? And I think this is what Chiron has us all kind of like going around in circles in one way or another. Because Chiron, enhanced with all the astrology that's going on, is really heightening up the senses. So a lot of us are really sensitive and we almost feel like vulnerable, possibly even scared or afraid at times, or unsure of ourselves because we're on another level of we're in the divide, is what Spirit said. It's kind of like this split in consciousness where you realize your higher calling instead of what's happening right now or what you've walked away from in the past right now. Because they're basically what they're showing me is this transition that we've moved into another place, another field, right? Where the other one is going to exist no longer, to not only to us but to others as well. So you're looking at a paradigm shift that is happening on a very, very slow in a very, very slow length or a lengthy process, right? And not all of us are, not a lot of us are prepared for the long game or how these things actually work in our lives. And if you pay attention to some of the stuff that we talk about here with these planetary influences, you realize that you're on a hero's journey at this point. You know what I'm saying? It's not necessarily you healing from anything, you know, in this very, very sacrificial or survivalistic manner where we're, kind of like acting like a fucking martyr while we're complaining because we know we're ego deathing and it's total bullshit. So if this is kind of like your experience, just understand that it's like the more dramatic we become of the realizations that we have about ourselves or another, the more we enhance drama in our lives. And not a lot of people understand, when you're passionately driven about releasing or letting go or having a realization or speaking a truth, just remember you own that truth and you experience it simultaneously. So, when we hold on to some type of anger or spite or some dislike or disdain about someone or something, understand that we are holding ourselves in that memory as well, you know and this is the power of creation, is what Spirit just said, to understand that we own our words and our thoughts and our emotions, but not everything is our thoughts and our emotions. And that's why discernment comes in. And a lot of people are going to be really kind of like grounding out and revealing those things to themselves as the night progresses tonight and thereafter. It's like we're going to be realizing stupid little things that we don't like about other people or each other. And we have a very profound decision to make in that moment, whether we're just going to continue to spiral into the sunset, is what Spirit just said, or just hold ourselves accountable in that moment and be like, hold on, man, let me check myself first because I might be overreacting. And I'm tired of overreacting in a way where it steals my energy and it doesn't allow me to be in the present or experience joy or happiness or work towards my goals, right? We talk about distractions all the time, and hate, anger, despite, or disdain are really great distractors, is what Spirit just said. You know what I'm saying? So holding on to these things for whatever you're holding on to, yeah, it's justified and validated. But if you continue to hold on to an emotion that's associated with that validation, then there's some more work to be done or something that needs to be just kind of like, hey, dude, it costs me too much to literally hold on to these petty little fucking things anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like, I myself call myself out, being the awareness that I am. Sometimes I realize that even in my mind that the ego surfaces somehow, right? Well, you'll notice that a collective agitation turns into an internal agitation, which also turns into a personal agitation, until you pull yourself back into the present and realize that, hey, none of these things really matter unless I give them the matter to exist, So I really got to check what I allow to exist in my experience, in my family, you know what I'm saying? In my community, in my safe space, in my sacred temple. You know what I'm saying? These are the reevaluations that a lot of people are going to do with this Virgo moon. That looking at the spiritual aspects and understanding that the physicality is spiritually driven, not the physical drives the spiritual. No, those are the decisions that we make that enact karma or dharma. You know what I'm saying? Because we're taking things into our own hands and we're literally placing another life purpose on top of what we're actually meant to be doing or flowing with at that point, not realizing that we're kind of like mechanicizing our future when we do these things, right? Because there's got to be structure. There has to be, it's just got to be a fucking plan. And we don't give ourselves the opportunity to just go with it, right? Because every time we've actually tried to go with it, here comes the trust issues fucking knocking on your door because you've been screwed over in the past, not realizing that in this very moment, that may be what Chiron is showing you. That may be what the planetary placements have been trying to teach you this whole, for 6 months, So again, when we reevaluate how things work in our lives, we understand that we change our lives with every decision that we make. But then those decisions take time to manifest, to bleed out in a way where you could see everything that has come from the fruits of your behavior, your decisions, the way that you think, feel, and act about yourself, and the where you hold other people in those placements as well. Do you see them as equals? Do you see them as lower? Do you see them as higher? Are you still judging? Do you still have opinions? Why are you second guessing yourself? And if you look at Leo represents two things. You can, the energy itself, not necessarily what the archetype of Leo is, but the energy itself can present great narcissism, you know what I'm saying? Or cynicism, or some type of sarcasm, or some type of darkness literally coming up on one aspect of it. Or we could be completely vulnerable and in our coward state, or in our fight or flight mechanism, or in our survival mechanisms, trying to make ourselves feel safe, when in actuality, we're meant to sit in between those things and reevaluate how this whole thing pans out as we just spoke about it. Because wait a minute, those things exist simultaneously. And I have the ability to focus where if I'm emotionally tethered to this negative aspect of whatever it is that I'm feeling in this moment, then it doesn't allow me to, I'm distracted because that's all I'm focusing on. But if I turn around and decide, hey, wait a minute, hold on a second, I am the awareness that I am feeling, sensing, thinking these things. Take a step back, take a deep breath, and realize that, wait a minute, if I'm experiencing this and I'm so driven into this particular emotion right now, what is the latter aspect of this? Because this is trying to take me somewhere where I've been before, and I don't like it. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like I've earned respect enough for myself not to have to fucking experience those things, right? And that's part of that reevaluation where you realize, hold on a second, there's a higher calling, there's a higher aspect to this, there's a higher awareness. I am a spiritual being having a human experience, and I am the embodiment of Christ, or whichever way you see it, or the Sophia, or the divine, or spirit, or angels, you know what I'm saying? Or guides, whichever way you want to look at it, it doesn't matter. You're embodying an energy that you're becoming comfortable with, and it's literally pulling out your fears as you become more comfortable with it, right? And then you understand how the purging cycle works, why ego deathing comes up, why moments in astrology literally trigger us in one way or another, even though that we're at peace and we're not doing anything wrong, and then somebody comes along, blows a fart in the wind, we smell it, and all of a sudden we're agitated and we're no longer in that place of peace. We're no longer in the present moment. And you don't realize it's kind of like the universe's way of saying, hey, kid, check your test out. You gonna let this bother you anymore? You gonna hold on to this fucking baggage? You gonna keep them people where they're at by judging them, labeling, or having an opinion of how the fuck you feel? Or are you gonna drop that shit right here and continue to move on through that door? And the realistic perspective, or the practical perspective, is exactly what's happening. That you could feel the energy changing and having a more practical aspect to your own emotions, your own sensitivity. And, keeping your head out of the clouds, because being grounded is something that's really important. We should know that by now. And if we don't, understand that that is a key element to your success, because there is, not only are you a thinking, living, feeling human being, but there's also a conscious entity that is associated with this planet that looks up to you, that looks to connect with you, because it is you, and it knows you, and it loves you because you came from it, right? And that's kind of like the purpose of grounding, becoming more connected and self-aware within yourself, and then allowing you to go through the spiritual tutelage that the teachers have for you by allowing to yourself to master the elements which are also you, right? Each and every one of you have representations of earth, air, fire, water, inside of yourself, right? And the ether, which is spirit, you know, and those are important aspects of yourself. And when one of those things are out of alignment, it throws you completely out of whack. And some of us are really strong in some placements, in some earth, fire, air, water placements. Some of us are really strong there, but we're really weak. And then we have to work on the other placements that we have to balance ourselves out. And this is all part of understanding how energy works, why you're so sensitive to the shit in the fucking first place, why these thoughts come up out of nowhere and you feel like you may or not be being manipulated or attacked. You know what I'm saying? Because you're on another level of sensitivity. And the first thing that we do when we're afraid and we don't know what's going on is we get paranoid, you know? And that's no bullshit, fam. It's a natural, it's almost an instinct for us, you know? It's a primal natural aspect of our human behavior, right? But when we understand that that is a primal natural aspect of our human behavior, now we have the ability to choose whether we're gonna get emotionally involved with the bullshit that's going on around us, whether it's people, places, things, people that are close to you, bad relationships. You know what I'm saying? It could be even good ones that are fucking pissing you off because it's just too good, you know? And then you know, that's where the revelations happen. It's like, wait a minute, I don't have any problems in my relationship. I have a problem with myself, obviously, because I'm allowing myself to feel this way somehow, right? And the deeper direction will take you to fucking grounding yourself out and coming down to the understanding that these are just part of the purging and releasing that has been going on since before the full moon. A lot of us have been coming into terms with a great many things. A lot of us have been ascending and we're really quiet. We're in hermit mode. We're introverted somehow. We want to stay away from people because we're too sensitive. We only have to take care of our responsibilities, but we also have to man up and understand that this is a time where comfortably uncomfortable is the fucking motto. Okay? Because if you really, really want to push past your own bullshit or everybody else's bullshit, then that means that you got to work twice as hard. And working twice as hard doesn't necessarily mean it's a physical thing. It's more so a spiritual understanding that brings the physical. And there's your twice as much. You know what I'm saying? But everything is intention. And if we don't work on our energy or we don't understand how these things manifest or how these situations are happening in our life and how they're orchestrated in one way or another, how the fuck are we supposed to make a good decision? You know what I'm saying? Like, we didn't know these things, but we can't punish ourselves for not knowing these things. And a lot of people might want to do that right now, you know? But you don't realize that the only thing that you're doing is you're suffering from the slavery and the purgatory that has been here for thousands of years because we were made this way. So it comes naturally to us to be the wounded animal in a fucking corner for whatever reason because our feelings been hurt. You know? And when you, like, again, perspective, right? With this perspective, it enhances your knowledge, right? Your knowledge base, your ability to pay attention, your ability to focus, your ability to fucking center yourself and actually acquire knowledge in a way where you're supposed to. This is also meditation, right? It's not just about quieting the mind. It's about allowing yourself to absorb information. Because some of y'all ask too many damn questions and you get too many damn answers during the day and you end up lost or stuck or stagnant because you just gave up because you're tired of fucking not knowing what the truth is. Well, did you stop to listen long enough to know the difference?
Or ask the right questions.
Or ask the right questions to put yourself in that position of true discernment, right? In other words, it's another way of saying we don't take the fucking time because we don't know how much time it takes, right? We always think that we're accomplishing something, and yeah, we are accomplishing something, but what was the intention in the first place? Half the time, people don't even remember why they meditated in the first place or what the intention was, right? That is also how Spirit is showing me. This is how you focus. Because when you bring yourself into that sacred moment, that sacred temple, and start honoring your higher self and reconnecting with all that is, you also realize that there's a field under you that you are also connecting to, right? And then it becomes everything around you the more you practice it. And then you become aware of your energy and how it moves and how when people offend you or you offend others feels, right? Which allows you to utilize your intuition and your deeper discernment naturally, so that way you're not as reactive and responsive to the outside world that you have been in the past. And this is what deep discipline from deep discernment actually creates, you know? So a lot of us don't want to end up in shitty situations and don't want to, don't worry about it. I mean, there's a plethora of them. Should you choose to engage in all of them, by all means, go for it if you want to entertain yourself and laugh about it. But if you're doing it to beat yourself up on purpose, I highly recommend not even fucking doing it in the first place. you know, because it doesn't make sense, dude. We're not martyrs, you know. We don't have to beat ourselves up to learn shit. We just have to be informed. And we have to have the willingness to be informed, to understand the orchestration of all that is, how the divine self actually works, and how you, the proponent of all that is, you know, the universe experiencing itself, that is special and beautiful in itself, is here to enact something in this world that you're all meant to share. Isn't that special? You know what I'm saying? We don't consider these things on a daily basis, but how special we are and how divinely led we are, or how divinely guided we are, or how divinely gifted we are. You know? We don't take those things seriously because we're trying to still live in this physical reality, doing physical shit with spirituality beating us down, banging drums in our heads till we fucking pay attention that it's like, hey, dude, you're not meant to live in that survivalistic program anymore. It doesn't exist. It's not here anymore, right? The only thing you're doing is pulling on threads when you're feeling a certain type of way, and that's why it hurts. It's because it takes so much energy to go there in the fucking first place, because it's so far away from you. And that's also an example of your own growth, which we don't necessarily understand how to be grateful for those things and understand that these divine lessons are not fucking punishments. We're the one punishing ourselves because of the verbalization and the fucking manipulation that we have suffered from in one way or another. We like to punish ourselves. Don't get it twisted without motivation, aspiration, and drive. You know, some of us need a kick in the ass every once in a while, but if you need a kick in the ass every day, like you need an energy drink, you know what I'm saying? No pun intended towards the energy drinks. I drink them too, you know what I'm saying? But if you need a swift kick in your ass every day, then maybe commitment and realizing that there's an internal issue within yourself that you need to push past might be beneficial to you, right? Because I don't think that anybody should want to get kicked in the ass every day and say, please, sir, may I have another? You know? I mean, let's stand up and let's look at it. You know, let's just look at it for a second. Dude, we are a confident, sovereign people, but we have no idea what the fuck that means and how to stand tall in the fire. And you're all in it right now. You know? Whether you may see that nothing's wrong. All right? But the outside world is definitely reflecting the chaos of the internal functions of humanity. You know, so in one way or another, if it resonates with you, then you obviously have something within yourself that is vibrating at that frequency that is causing you to allow that, even though that you know it's straight trash and you shouldn't be watching it, you know. But some of us, it's too tasty to turn off, right? Not realizing that that's exactly what the fuck it's meant for, is to keep you away from focusing on your higher self, your higher calling, whatever it is that you're meant to do. You know, I'm not going to get into the whole warrior thing, but we are in a war. You know, we're in a war for our fucking sovereignty. Everybody wants to be free. Nobody needed to pay for shit when we got here in the fucking first place, and here we are paying for shit that's already ours. Come on, bro. Sovereignty. You know, these are the things that you learn along the way, you know? And, you know, you'll hear me talk about discipline all the time. Discipline is what keeps you out of the fucking holes. You know, because the realizations that you have, because you've done the inner work and seen these things for yourself and your own experiences, allows you to go teach another and say, hey, don't do that shit. All right? Just don't. You know, if you want to go ahead and experience it, go for it. But that's wisdom, and wisdom that you're all meant to share on top of it all, because your experiences are valid. Whether you think you're talking, you know, whether you think you're wasting your words or not, the universe hears you always. And none of your efforts go in vain. None of your experiences are meant to punish you or put you in purgatory to the point where you have to live that way consistently. No. Some of you were meant to grow in these places. You were seated in those places on purpose. So because you have the ability to rise above those things, because God is the one who sent you in the first place. You know? And that's an exercise of our divinity. This is an understanding of our purpose, our place in our path. Not everyone is the same. But duty and responsibility to ourselves also carries out into the physical world. So a lot of you healers, intuitives, teachers, psychics, you know what I'm saying, leaders in your little communities or your communities, you know, this information, knowledge, and wisdom is also beneficial to the collective as well, regardless of where they're at in life, to better understand themselves, to bring more balance and harmony, not only to themselves, but the planet overall. Because it only takes a little bit to get that frequency to change. And we can change frequency with every thought that we make, you know, and learning how to manipulate and control that in a way where you don't go off the fucking deep end and think that you're the third incarnation of Jesus Christ or whatever it is. That a lot of people end up in spiritual traps and delusion, not realizing that those are pieces of their higher self, their oversoul, the one that is literally manifesting through them to show them that they are also connected to the divine in the ways that they are connected to the divine, right? It's a, you hear it a lot. I am you, you know, we are the universe experiencing itself in the many ways that it has manifested itself in these situations, people, places, and things. Doesn't go without saying that, our experiential life of loving one another, honoring one another, connecting with one another like we connect with the higher self, the oversoul, God's source creator, Sophia, Christos, Christ, Jesus, you know what I'm saying, or whichever other form that you may have or study or possibly even have a religion and follow that belief, those are all paths to oneness. You know what I'm saying? They're not one and the same. They're unique by their expressions, but it connects you to the divine as you're meant to, so it's kind of like the promise that nobody knows is promised to themselves, that it is their divine right to engage in asking for basically consciousness to show itself in your life and how it behaves and how you understand those things, right? Some of us might want to ask those questions, but it's already being offered to you now in this moment, because it's every moment, because you are everything and everything is also you. And each and every one of you are that representation of that thing. I don't know how else to say that anymore, because we like to play a lot of fucking games with these labels and identify with themselves. Oh, I'm this or I'm that. I'm like, you're everything. And everything is you. That's what you're connected to. That's where these gifts come from. That's where your intuition comes from. That's where your gut instinct comes from. That's where the flower of life is fucking developed inside of you. You are it, And it's just amazing to me how many people actually become distracted from that very fact, because understanding this is a game changer, especially now in this world the way it is. And what we're seeing right now outside of ourselves, we are realizing that we're the ones who are the proponents of those change because we decided to change those things within ourselves, right? That your work is the byproduct. Your effort is also a byproduct of what you see in the physical reality. It's only chaos because that's what needs to happen it has to come up to the surface to be purified. Like a lot of us don't realize how much, a lot of us might be, overly sensitive right now, possibly even ego deathing. A lot of people might be just kind of like snappy, ornery, bitchy, pissy, moany, complainy. You know what I'm saying? The disdain and disharmony is something that a lot of people are expressing right now. And if you were listening earlier into the conversation, we understand how when we are speaking these things, the universe is listening. The universe is responding to the very thing that we feel to give us more of. So we have to be mindful of our words and basically not be manipulative or try to out-trick ourselves, trick our minds, but learn how to reprogram it by being in more acceptance that there is another opportunity to see things from a higher perspective that doesn't create suffering as much as it normally would when you're there. You know what I'm saying? This is another way of a lot of people understanding that all problems are dealt with the present, in the now. You don't want to get off your throne to go back and deal with some shit that's calling you over here. You know what I'm saying? And that's where discernment comes in. That's where centering, balancing, alignment. That's where really like openness and awareness comes in. And allowing yourself to have the clarity for a moment and realizing, wait a minute, hold on, man. I'm going to go this way instead of where I normally would be sucked into that way. If anybody has any questions about how that naturally works in their lives, I'd be more than happy to explain it. I am doing readings for people today, and energy readings and messages. I'm doing those just for $22 donations today for people that want to understand more about themselves and what they have going on and what their internal clock is doing. Because that's really important. We got an astrological clock, we got a human clock, but there's also an energetic clock inside of us. So some of us are turning tables. Some of us are suffering from malfunctions. Life is not working the way it's supposed to. It seems like it's short-circuiting right now. Big tech issue is what I hear. You might be suffering from a couple things, and Some of us are over pursuing those emotions because we want something to work for us right now. And that's kind of like the universe's way of telling you to take a step back and reevaluate what's going on right now, because this is kind of like an integration phase, but it's also a triggering moment, that we're having in a from a collective standpoint. So if it's not happening inside of you, it might be happening outside of you. That's going to allow you to be affected. That will affect you somehow inside of you, so if anybody has any questions or they'd like to get a reading today, I'll be more than happy to give somebody one. Because remember, it's not just me, it's spirit. It's spirit for the most part. And your questions are welcome as well. If you're curious about that, whether it's feminine, masculine, it doesn't matter. Your feedback, how you picked up on this, if it doesn't make sense to you, you can put that in the comments right now. You know what I'm saying? So, and that's, some of us don't even realize the mind-blowing clarity that Aquarius represents for a lot of us right now. Just got poked in the eye, in the ear, sorry. Hello, Sunshine, how are you? No questions, fam? None at all? You don't be afraid to come forward, man. If you have something to say it. Now's the time for those things to come out anyway. If you've been curious about something, or you have questions about something, even if you want to know why life is working a certain way in your life, we have the ability to evaluate that space to help you understand it more. I'm getting that some of us might think that we don't have any problems, when the reality is that it's happened to us and we're just lying to ourselves in one way or another, forgetting about the fucking promise that we made to ourselves a long time ago about being authentically real. That's cool. That's really cool, man. It was a rocky road for a couple people not too long ago with the astrology and whatnot, man. The build up to this full moon was really, really interesting. It was really profound. I noticed a lot of things, even in my personal experience, that I haven't experienced before. So, I can't say, what's going on in the collective, but I know a lot of people's abilities are being enhanced, or they're enhancing, and maybe they may or may not know what to do with it yet. Like, everything is growing, fam. Right now, we've gone through a death cycle at this point, and we're starting to kind of like wake up from the death or the rebirth that we are all having in one way or another, and really mastering or learning how to balance the masculine and feminine energies, and understanding in all respect that they both have wounded areas inside of themselves, so especially when it comes to relationships with people, that could also be a factor this week. Your relationships might come up for reevaluation, because again, the Aquarius, the clarity that is coming up right now, might allow you to see from a higher place of knowing, from a higher place of clarity, that shows you that this relationship needs more boundaries, or needs to be terminated, or needs to be enhanced or focused on. You know what I'm saying? Like, we have all that opportunity with this energy that's coming out right now. So again, if you guys got questions, I'll be more than happy to answer. Oh, you're welcome. That's what we're here for, is to inform, to guide. You know what I'm saying? To help people go through the journey, if they're willing to go through it. You know what I'm saying? We've seen it so many times, where, a lot of people just plateau and then they fall off, and then they end up demonizing the very thing that set them free in the first place, which makes no sense. But we have seen that, That's what's up, high voltage hippie. I'm glad you're feeling those things, because that's an example of your growth and your worth. You're actually starting to recognize those things more than ever. I think that's really important for people to understand. It's like, we don't celebrate the growth the way that we're supposed to. It isn't necessarily a throw your party shit. You know what I'm saying? Even though that those are your spirit, you'll have spirit parties. They'll celebrate when you achieve goals and whatnot. But we don't celebrate ourselves in that aspect. And we don't realize that that's kind of like an aspect of self-love that we have denied ourselves from the creator, you know? Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. I'm here to be of service, you know, and I'm very, very proud of what I do, and I'm connected in a way that allows me to kind of verbalize it in a way where even the simplest way, you know, even the simplest of people can understand. And you know that vast ability to communicate on many different levels of communication is really important for us because we're diverse. You know, we're meant to communicate with the people in the ways that we're meant to communicate. You know, some of us don't even know that. If you're a healer, it's definitely duty and responsibility of understanding those things if you engage in the spiritual aspects of yourself. You know, not just a Reiki healer, or not just an energy healer, and not just a, you know what I'm saying? Some sort of practitioner that's all they do all day and not understand that it's more so a learning experience where you're consistently evolving, so your practice is evolving, so you can't really label yourself as such. You know what I'm saying? You know, we have to allow the mental boundaries to kind of like wither away and allow ourselves to embrace the higher stuff, you know, the higher calling, higher vibration, you know, the information. Well, yeah. Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. You know, I really appreciate that because there's much respect for the work. You know, my wife. You know, my wife put me on that journey. You know, I walked in her shoes. You know, in many different occasions to understand that this is not a fucking joke. You know what I'm saying? This is real, dude. You know, it's like people don't even see the ticket that they have in their hands, man. You know, it's like I at first, dude, to be honest with you, you know, just to tell you a fucking story, dude, I knew, you know, I was like, oh, I can heal people with my hands. Woohoo. You know, I do Reiki. You know, whatever. I know it. You know, not realizing that there's this whole sacred aspect to it. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people, you know, when I was at first, it's like, oh yeah, I heal people because and it feels good, you know. But you know, going through the program, going through the training, going on, you know, learning the ways of the shaman and going on the journey, literally on journeys, literally taught me that there's so much more beneath the surface of the label, right? So you don't realize that you're carrying all this knowledge and wisdom on one side, you know what I'm saying? All this knowledge, wisdom, and experience that you already have because you're connected to the divine, versus the stuff that you actually built on top of it that doesn't allow you to see how special and beautiful and how uniquely gifted you are, you know? So again, you know, we're talking about perspective. You know, how do we look at these things? How do we practice these things? How do we make more time to commit to these things? Because then we don't want to be washed up by the matrix, you know? And that's a really, really practical fucking question, you know? It's a really practical question. It's not lame. It doesn't suck. It's not fucking boring. It's a fucking really good question. And we as adults, we should ask ourselves these things. What do we side with? You know, do we side with the divine, which is also us? Or do we side with this mechanistic world that is literally teaching us nothing but chaos and fear? You know, and then we wonder why we suffer. So with that being said, I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to bid you all adieu. I want to thank you all for being here and thank you for hanging out and just kind of listening to different perspectives on how to manage situations or crisis situations or vulnerability situations or insecure information in situations in your life, you know, because these are beautiful tactics that we teach in the mentorship space, you know what I'm saying, in the shamanic life coaching space, to other people to help them learn what discipline and accountability actually looks like for them, because you know our experiences are all different, you know, and with respect and understanding to those things, when you go on a journey with us, you actually go through your personal experience. This isn't about us. We're just the vessel and the elder in that point, you know, taking you on a journey through those things whatever it is, guided, so that way you have the ability to recognize, practice, and encompass those things inside of yourself and answer that higher calling, or step up to that higher plate, that higher plane that you want to be on, you know? Because now this is about, it's like, oh, if I want to advance in life, then I have to advance within myself, because it's how this works, my experience, how I live. Because what I put out is what I get, what I receive. So I need to understand what it is that I'm putting out and how, in one way or another, to help me understand, to bring more joy, pleasure, and abundance into my life, right? Because everything seems to be boiling outside of the door, you know, or outside the window. Everything just seems to be boiling and changing into something else, you know? And I guess it's kind of like our way of being able to focus on the inner world right now, because all the chaos in the world is actually showing us to go within, you know, because that's not the truth. And the truth is literally it's literally being uplifted from all of that. It all has to come out. You know, so the only truth that you have to worry about is the one that you don't honor within yourself. Because again, like we showed you before, this is a symbol of the work that the people that are here, that are gifted, are already doing. And it's causing this, you know, where we're no longer in a slave perception of reality, you know, that we actually know that we are free beings, that we're entitled to our freedom and our sovereignty, and we're meant to live in the way that the universe intended it in the first place, you know, which means that we'll probably witness things, but we won't be here to fucking literally go down with it, because dimensions are real, perspective as well, you know what I'm saying? It enhances everything. So, you know, that's kind of like, if you realize that you're always out of harm's danger because you're protected, it's for a reason, you know? It's because you're being guided that way. So I don't know. A lot of you probably have dodged a bullet or two and kind of been like, oh, okay, I don't know how that happened, and I can't necessarily explain it, but it did happen to me, and I was saved somehow, you know? And that's how you know that you got spirit looking after you. It's not just they come and swoop in a moment of danger. They're always fucking there. And becoming more comfortable with that is sometimes what people have a hard time doing, because they don't know how to trust themselves. So, with that being said, I'm going to get up out of here, fam. Much love to each and every one of you. Stay beautiful and blessed. We'll talk at you later. See you.